And so looking at some of these projections, like The Athletic has a number of them. I found 4 different ones here. The first one is their Stanley Cup playoff awards. I don't know why they call it that, but is there way too early predictions for the NHL 24-25 season? They might want to work on their titling on their URL. But anyways, the Islanders are the dark horse contender category alongside teams like Tampa, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Detroit, LA, and Ottawa. We have, according to the percent vote, 6.3% chance of winning the cup out of that category.
Okay. You had me in the first half with some of the teams that you rattled off, and then you got to Detroit and Ottawa, and I was like, ooh, okay. Don't love that as much, but okay. I could live with that. I think they're on a like, my opinion on them hasn't really changed a whole lot from what my expectation was going into free agency and basis what they've done so far. And there's still more work to be done. But I know, like, for instance, you brought up in our text their playoff odds for next year. I was a little bit surprised with that one, but just speaking on this for a second, I view them as a fringe playoff team and would lean towards yes, that they're a playoff team. So them being in that category seems to align with where I am.
Right, and so do the odds, right? Like, the odds say they're plus 110 to make the playoffs, minus 140 to miss the playoffs. And so that's a 58% chance, right, that they miss it, according to the odds?
Yeah, exactly. An implied chance of 58%, and then plus 110 is 47.6. Now, there's a VIG in there, obviously, for both of those. So if you're wondering, like, 47 plus 58 doesn't equal 100, what's going on here? Well, sportsbooks take a VIG, so that's obviously part of it. But I thought it would be slightly the other way. Like, if I had to guess, like, if you didn't tell me, I would have thought, like, I don't know, maybe minus 105 that they make the playoffs, like, which is 51.2%. I would have thought it'd be that, and then maybe like plus 130 they miss.
Right, because have they done anything to make them worse than they were last year, right? Because they made the playoffs last year, mind you. Like, are they worse off this year than they were last year based off of what they've done with their roster?
No, it's the same plus Anthony Duclair.
Exactly.
So you can make the case as bad. Well, I mean, no Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck, but as referenced in another article that we'll get to, addition by subtraction potentially there.
That's right. So that's where the next projection goes. Dom Lucian says that, like, of his improved teams, the Islanders are 11th, which is both good and bad. You don't want to necessarily be high on a list like that because it means that you had a pretty low floor, right? Like, in most improved usually means that you were really bad, and then you're higher up on the list because, well, you finally got good type of thing. But the Islanders aren't at the top. 11th to me is good for a number of reasons, mainly because we only did one thing, really, in terms of adding. We brought in Anthony Duclair, and we got, I'm not going to say rid, but we moved on from Matt Martin and Cal Clutterbuck, it seems, and are bringing in, like, Maxim Tsiplikov and probably Hudson Fashion to play on that fourth line, which is an upgrade in and of itself, because while these guys were good players in their careers, they no longer are or were. You can argue Cal Clutterbuck had a good season, but how many more good seasons has he got in him? And you give the opportunity to someone else, and so, like, that to me is an addition in and of itself.
Yeah, the Cal one, I would agree. I thought this was a better Cal season than in recent memory. Probably his best in 2018-19, maybe.
Yeah,
I would say so. Now there were times where in 2021 he had 11 points in 50 games. He played most of the season that year, but the two prior to this one, he was banged up and missed a ton of time. But I thought he was solid, all things considered. Matt Martin didn't look very good. He had a resurgent year a year ago, but then struggled again this past year. So I'm good with them moving on from both of those guys. And I kind of agree with Dom's point. While it might be harsh, looking at that as addition by subtraction is, I think, probably appropriate for where both of those guys are at this point.
Absolutely. So, like, it makes total sense with what he's doing and how he's saying it. And it's not to say, like, Dom is the authority. If this was he's saying, oh my God, we're so good going forward, it's just, it's giving you an opinion outside of someone who wears orange and blue glasses like we all do. right? And that's really, it helps us, or should help us, form our own opinions. Not to say that you need to take that opinion and run with it. It's to say, like, well, okay, that puts my opinion in check a little bit. How does that relate to how I'm seeing things, and what can I take from that going forward? And he's absolutely right in terms of the additions to subtraction. And the addition of Anthony Duclair is a good one for our middle six. It shouldn't be the be all end all move here, which is why you're probably not seeing like the playoff odds or the first projection have the Islanders going crazy because they brought in Anthony Duclair.
No, and like that's not one at the time when we were live on the air. I was happy about it, but this can't be like that's all. If your offseason is you bring in Anthony Duclair, that's underwhelming. If that's a part of what you do, you bring in Anthony Duclair and then make a trade at some point, you have to dump some money still. I know we've talked about this a ton. I still think the writing feels like it's on the wall with JG Pageau, that he's not going to be here next year. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, we both were pretty wrong about the draft situation. We thought for sure they would be attaching one of those second round picks to move Pageau or Lee or someone, but they didn't do that. I'm very curious to see how that ends up playing out, but I don't think the Islanders are done with the shuffling yet.
No, they shouldn't be. By all accounts, they aren't, because it sounds like Lou is trying to do something, which all GMs obviously are trying to do. It's just, can they actually pull it off, right? Like, he definitely tried to move these picks to bring someone in. That is very clear. That is obvious. It's just he couldn't strike the right deal, either because he didn't want to give more, or the teams themselves wouldn't let go of whatever asset for what Lou Lamoriello had. So who is to blame for it not happening is undecided, but it's clear that he tried to do something and will continue to do so. So hopefully he can figure it out in terms of finding the right deal here. But we still have these picks in 2025 that he can move. And Jean-Gabriel Pageau, you're right, is the guy. Like, honest to God, he's got to be the guy to go.
If you like that, make sure to subscribe to Up the Turnpike on Patreon for more exclusive New York Islanders content.